How do we equip our families with a biblical worldview? How do we prepare the next generation for life? How do I grow in my walk with the Lord and in my marriage? If you wrestle with these questions, you are in the right place to find answers. Welcome to the Entrusting the Faith podcast. Welcome to the Entrusting the Faith podcast. I'm your host, Eric Rutherford, and today I will be speaking with Trey Morgan. He and his wife, Lea, are the founders of the Stronger Marriage Workshops and Stronger Family Workshops. They've written 2 books, 10 Ways to Make Your Marriage Stronger, and their latest book, Wisdom for Your Marriage. They have a great podcast. They've been married for over 30 years and raised 4 boys. But before we start our interview, this episode is brought to you by my book, Leading Well at Home, How Husbands and Fathers Can Biblically Lead Their Families. So have you ever thought, I want to be a godly husband or father, but I don't know where to start? Have you ever heard that you need to do something to equip your family, but didn't know how to begin? Well, if so, Leading Well at Home will show you how you can love Jesus Christ, love and serve your wife and children, and take responsibility for discipling your family. You'll be encouraged and given action steps that you can apply so that you're moving forward. You can buy it online through our website at entrustingthefaith.com or leadingwellathome.com or anywhere books are sold online. You can also get a free excerpt on our website. All that information is in the show notes, so you can check it out. So now let's jump into today's interview. Welcome, Trey.
Thank you. I am absolutely honored to be here. I've been excited about us getting together today, had it on my calendar for a while, and just honored to be on the show.
Well, I'm glad you're here. And so for those in our audience who are not familiar with it, what are Stronger Marriage Workshops?
Well, we go all over the U.S. and Canada and Central America and hopefully Mexico soon. But we go all over America right now is kind of where we're at, doing workshops. Now, we generally shoot to do about 1 a month. These are marriage workshops, and we do family workshops just because that's kind of schedule-wise all we can do. But we try to do 1 a month, but sometimes it works out to where we do anywhere from 14. Actually, I think we have 16 this year that we're doing. And we just got back from Oregon. We did one up there. We're headed to Nashville, Tennessee this weekend. But we go in and do either Friday night, Saturday morning workshops or an all day Saturday. We let the host church decide how they want to do it, what works best for them. It is just a real good shot in the arm for marriages, whether your marriage is already great or struggling or really struggling. Our workshop is for anybody, any marriage, any family that just really wants to come, be encouraged and strengthened, and really learn some how-to. We are very, very practical in our workshop. We have lots of little homework assignments in break periods, and it's a lot of fun. We do a lot of laughing together. It's not something where we have people break up into groups and we never ask anybody to talk. A lot of men are uncomfortable. They go, "Are you going to single me out?" The men, by the time it's over for the weekend, are the ones going, "Man, I'm glad we came to this." But yes, we love doing these, and we stay booked up about 1.5 years, 2 years out. But it all came to be just by accident. We actually did not go looking for this. We actually think it's a God thing. We have always loved marriage ministry. We've always loved family ministry. But we've also had 4 children that we've raised. And so we haven't been able to do things like this. And so we attended every workshop we could when we were young. And as our kids got older, we found ourselves our schedule to where we could go, and we'd have people invite us to do a church retreat or a marriage retreat. And then about 10 years ago, God just threw the doors open as our kids got older. And it just seemed like every time we were turning around, we'd have a church go, "Would you come present some marriage material for us next month?" And then next month, and then the next month. And before you knew it, we were booked up about 2 years out and kind of stay that way. And it's incredible. People always ask us, how do I get started? I really don't know. I can't write a book on how to do marriage workshops and how to set it all up, because it really wasn't anything specific that we did. And we're going to run with it until God shuts the door and says, all right, you're done. And when when people quit calling and churches quit inviting us, then we'll go, hey, it's time to move on and do something different. But right now the door is open wide, and we're loving marriage workshops. My wife, who is she's the introvert of the two of us. And she often says, I actually love getting up and in front of large crowds of people and talking about marriage and our marriage and family. And Lee says, I'm the introvert, and I still hadn't figured out how you taught me into this. But she is so good at it. In fact, the few times where I have to go by myself, we've had couples that have come for a second or third time, and they'll go, hey, that wasn't as good. I said, I know. It is so much better when Lee is there, because she just adds that perfect little touch of a wife who knows what she's talking about. She's just got some wisdom in there that's fantastic.
Oh, wow. I would have to agree. I know anytime I can be involved in a ministry, any type of thing where my wife can be in there too, it is just that much better. Because there's only so much I can bring, but together there is something that God does through marriages in that same way. So I totally understand.
That is right. It is just so much better when it's both of us talking about marriage and struggles and victories, and when you get a wife's opinion, and sometimes when you get a wife who can speak to the men to say, here's what your wife probably likes. That's a whole lot better than me telling them what they probably like, because they're like, well, she's a lady, she ought to know.
It is. It's that like extra validity. So so as couples come in, if a couple has never been to one of your workshops, are they the same type of workshop each time? Do they vary? What can they expect sort of walking in the door?
When you come in, whether it's the marriage workshop is a workshop that is about 8 hours long, and it lasts the Friday night and Saturday, or just on Saturday. And if you're at the marriage workshop, that's all we cover is marriage material. We talk about husbands. We talk a session to wives. We have a session where we talk about marriage killers. We do a full hour session on intimacy. And so from the time you walk in, it's all about marriage. You'll pick up a workbook. And in that workbook, that's about 20 pages. It's basically notes where you fill in the blanks as we go. And there's a bunch of extra material in there that is really good for just later discussion and different stuff. And you pick that up and grab a pen, and you and your spouse go sit down somewhere, and basically you follow along, and we make it as simple and easy and contemporary and practical as possible. The family workshop we do, which is basically, if you come to a marriage workshop one weekend and you turn around and go to one the next weekend, it's going to be most of the same material. We pretty much do the same. Sometimes we change up some stories. Sometimes we change up a few things here and there, but it's basically, if you come to one marriage workshop, and we have some really nice people who sometimes follow up. We've got some couples that have been to 3, 4, and 5 of our marriage workshops. And we're always like, you should pick it up and give this. You've heard it as many times as we have nearly, but they always just say it's a good refresher, which we understand, because when we do it, it's a good refresher for us, because it reminds us we've got to step up and practice what we preach. At our family workshop, the material, the format is exactly the same, but the material centers around family issues. We talk about what are some characteristics of healthy families? What are some things that you need in your family? We have a session called Family Killers. We do an hour and a half session on marriage, because strong marriages make strong families. And so we have, it's just a little bit different format where we talk about parenting and kids and cell phones and just some things as families that you've got to watch out for. Our marriage seminar is the most popular. We like our family seminar just as well, but it seems like most places we go, we give them the choice. Do you want a marriage or family seminar? Most people say the marriage seminar. About two out of three say we want the marriage seminar. But this weekend in Tennessee, where we're headed, we're doing a family seminar. It's actually our second time at this church, and it's they said we just want to do one every couple of years, and we're just going to we'll do a marriage one. A couple of years later, we'll do family. And a couple of years later, we'll do a marriage. And so that's kind of what couples can expect. Nobody's going to ask you to talk. Nobody's going to put you in a small group. That's not us. We just don't do things that way. And so it's very laid back.
As a guy, walking into one of those things, it's nice to know what to expect. Me personally, I kind of lean towards that. Yeah, that non-group thing is a little safer. It's just me and my wife. So I appreciate that. Other ways work great too, but that's just, me personal preference. It's that fear factor. So,
sure. And we have some good friends, and their workshop, they break into little breakout groups, and we're okay with that. That's just not us. Most of the men we talk to, for us, that say we'll come as long as you don't make us get in a little group or talk, and we're like, you got a deal.
I can totally respect that. Let me ask this: for anybody listening, couples who are listening, men or women, what is one thing that you have seen that if people implement in their marriage, that it actually, helps it grow, helps build that relationship? So is there like one thing? I mean, there's like no silver bullet, right? There's no like, if you do this, then everything is, all Disney happily ever after. But is there one thing that you can kind of point to that would be a good step?
We think so. It's one thing that can roll into many things. We really think there is. What we see in speaking to thousands of couples a year is we find in a lot of marriages, the longer you get married, or the longer you've been married, the more comfortable you get. And a little bit, I'll be honest, I'll just use the word, a little lazy. And we have couples all the time that, they will tell us, well, we just hadn't been working on our marriage because everything seems to be going good. Things are going well. And we had a little young lady one time that contacted us and said, hey, are you going to come to our community and do a workshop sometime? And I messaged her back and I said, we were there last month. Did you not know it? And she said, oh, we knew it, but we just weren't having any problems then. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, what is this concept that so many people have, that you only work on your marriage when you're having some problems or when it's struggling? And in marriage, a lot of couples, they kind of push that marriage to the back burner of the stove. And it literally, other than your relationship with God, is the most important thing that you have. And couples will, not purposely, but they'll push it to the back of the stove, and they'll focus on everything but. They'll focus on raising their kids and paying their bills and their hobbies and their jobs and PTA. I mean, you just go right down the list. Everything takes priority over marriage. And then all of a sudden there's a crisis in marriage, or there's a problem in marriage, or something comes up in marriage. And it's like, we need to invest some time and some money in our marriage. And our point always is if you'll work on your marriage when, not just in the bad times, yes, work on them when things are struggling, but if you'll work on your marriage in the good times as well, there'll be much less bad times. And we just find so many couples that just kind of get comfortable in marriage, and they quit putting out the effort that they did early in marriage. They quit serving their spouse, or they quit communicating as well, or maybe they quit being as open and honest as they were. And I love newlyweds, and I think if we could be more like newlyweds, we joke a little about newlyweds, because us married folks that have been married a long time always, you ask a newlywed how's marriage, and they'll go, oh, he's perfect. He does not. And we're like, yeah, give it some time and he'll drive you nuts. They do such a good job overlooking things that their spouse does wrong, and they focus on what their spouse does well. And as people who've been married a long time like us, we tend to reverse that. And we find ourselves, couples in the world that have been married a long time, they tend to start focusing on things that their spouse does wrong, and it drives them crazy about their spouse, and they quit noticing the things their spouse does well. And if we could just learn to get some of us folks that have been married a while back to that little earlier newlywed stage, to where we started paying attention to what our spouse does well, it'd make a huge difference. But the main thing we push, don't get lazy in marriage. Find a marriage book and read it together as a couple. Go to a marriage workshop together, take a weekend away without the kids and go spend some time together. There are so many things that you can do. Take a weekly date, just you and your spouse, that you can do that we talk about in our workshops. That don't get comfortable in marriage. Comfortable in marriage is a marriage killer.
That is powerful. I know we've been married over 20 years. And like you say, it's the longer you go in marriage, the easier it is to get into that routine, into that comfort. And you think, so do you think like comfort, that I don't want to say apathy, because I know it can lead to apathy, but really it's almost that laziness there, not putting it, is that like the biggest sort of detriment, sort of killer to marriage? You think that's sort of like number one on the list?
Well, we think that every other marriage problem that there is stems from that, if that makes sense. So when you get a little lazy in your marriage, then you stop communicating. Intimacy doesn't work as well. All of a sudden, you're not focused on what your spouse needs. You're just over here going, well, I'm not doing that for her until she starts doing this for me. And people just get too comfortable in marriage, and we just get lazy in a sense of, before marriage, think about how hard we work. I worked so hard to win my wife before I married her. I took her on dates and I held her hand and I bought her flowers and I wrote her notes. I bragged on how beautiful she was. I did all of these things for her. And then I married her. And a lot of men, 2 years after marriage are like, why do I still need to be doing all those things? I got her. She's mine. And the ladies out here are going, where did the man go that I married? I married a man that bought me flowers and held my hand and snuggled on the couch, and he's gone. And this works on the other way too. The wives before marriage, they bragged on their husbands and they dressed up and they look good. I mean, every time you go out on a date, man, you'd make sure that she'd make sure she looked good. She wanted him to just go, wow, you look incredible. You flirted with him, all those things you did before marriage. You got to keep doing those after marriage too. You don't stop pursuing your spouse once you caught them. Work as hard to keep them as you did to win them in the first place. And I promise you, marriage will go so much better.
Oh, that is awesome. I like that. Work as hard to keep them as you did to get them in the first place. That is powerful. And I need that reminder too. So I know everybody else who's listening, they need that. I need that. That is just powerful.
Yeah. We work as men. We work so hard to win that wife. Men are pursuers by nature, in our area and your area where you live. We have a lot of deer hunters, and I've got buddies that are big deer hunters, and they'll spend 2 or 3 seasons waiting on a buck, pursuing one single buck to get just the right size. They'll feed it, they'll watch it, they'll pass up shooting it for a couple of years so that down the line they can go, okay, now he's ready. And they work so hard to pursue this thing. And then once they shoot it, they mount that head on a wall and they just, hey, look what I got. I got, this is mine. But the pursuit is over. And because that relationship's dead. And your wife or your husband, you don't just, hey, I got them and here, I'm going to hang them on a wall. And so I can walk by and go, look what I got. That relationship isn't dead. And you have got to continue to pursue them even after you've caught them already.
That is powerful. That is a reminder. That's something I need to continually put at the forefront of my mind. And I'm sure our listeners do too. Let me transition real quick, because you guys not only do you do conferences, but you guys have put together some books too. And like your latest came out in December of last year, right? So that is hang on, I'm looking at my notes, Wisdom for Your Marriage. So tell me a little bit about that book, and also what was the sort of the impetus behind it? It's like, hey, we need to get this in the hands of people.
Well, it was our second book, and we actually intended to write a second book, but we didn't plan on it until 2021. Okay. But because of quarantine and we had a whole lot of time, my wife started going, we need to write a book. We got all this time. Why are we not getting this book done? And so we put that out last year. we get so many requests. The second book is a little bit different than the first book. The second book is more of a marriage journal, a study guide. We get requests all the time going, I want a marriage devotional book that I can do, that I can read something out of the Bible, that I can answer some questions that maybe me and my spouse, either I can do it myself or me and my spouse can do it together, my spouse and I. And so we had a few we'd recommend that we had done, but there just wasn't a lot out there. And so we sat down and we did it's through the book of Proverbs. That's where we get the wisdom for your marriage. There's 31 chapters in the book of Proverbs. So we have it set up. You don't have to do it this way, but we've got it set up as a 31-day devotional that you can do with your spouse or by yourself. And you read in chapter 1, read chapter 1 from the book of Proverbs, and you do chapter 1 in the book. Lee and I we actually went through the book ourselves and just did it back in January. And it would take us about 10 to 15 minutes a day to read through the book, that chapter of Proverbs. And then we've got kind of a story or an application. And then there's questions to answer and kind of how are we doing on this in our marriage. And then there's a prayer prompt, because a lot of questions we get from couples is we don't really know how to pray together. I don't really know what to pray for my marriage. And so we've included some prayer prompts that you can pray that fit each chapter. The book has gone amazingly well, so well that we may do another book just like it. That's kind of a devotional book over 30 days or a month, either from the book of Proverbs, Song of Solomon or James next, because we just kind of, sometimes you put something out there and it blows up and you go, ooh, we struck a nerve. And so we think we've kind of found something that's needed. Our first book, 10 Ways to a Stronger Marriage, is more of kind of some of our material that's in our marriage workshop. People would always go, we can't go to the workshop. Can you write us a book that's got a lot of your material in it? And so we did, and it did extremely well as well. But the second one is a totally different book. It's much bigger. It's got pages to write on. It gives you an opportunity to open it up and you can spread it out like a journal and write in it. And we just I'm amazed at how many messages we get from couples going, oh, we just did chapter 12 and it was great. It's got little homework assignments that you can do through there. But yeah, it's been a really good thing for us. It's helped us to have get the message out to people who can't come to our workshops.
Oh, wow. That sounds really neat. I like that idea of giving them some prompts, as well as, how can we pray together? Because that's something, you hear in the church as a guy, it's like, okay, you need, to lead your family, you need to be responsible and all this. And like, then after that, all you hear is crickets, and you hear, it's like, how do I do that? How do I pray with my wife? And so, if you have never learned, just start today. That's not a bad thing. It's just sometimes they don't know how. And so having those prompts is huge.
And again, we make them pretty simple, not anything that makes anybody go, "Whoa, I don't know. That's long." It's very simple. Grab your spouse by the hand, and if you're not comfortable praying, read this prayer, and it fits in with the chapter and the study that we did on that chapter. So it has been, we have just been overwhelmed at how well God has blessed that book in getting information out on it. And we've done a little bit of promoting, but we really haven't done just a whole lot of promoting. We kind of wrote those books to take with us to workshops. So we do take them to workshops, but they've just done really well. We've been very blessed.
Wow. So you've got the new one out, the 10 ways to make a marriage stronger is a lot of material, similar material to your workshops. Is same type of thing? Is it more application driven?
Yeah. Everything we do is very practical. Now we share a lot of stories, and there's some questions in the back of the book that fit each chapter. If you want, a lot of churches use that book for a small group or for a Bible class. We've had a lot of churches that's gone through the 10 Ways to a Stronger Marriage with their little small group or a little marriage class. And so you've got a chapter to read, and then you can do your questions at the back, and all very, very practical, very lighthearted. Now, we touch on some tough subjects. There's some things that we touch on that there's a lot of folks, I don't mean this in a bad way. There's a lot of new stuff out there that's really hurting some marriages. And we touch on some stuff specifically in chapter 5. We get a lot of feedback on where we actually, the title of chapter 5 is Let's Get Naked, but Not That Way. And we're talking about from Genesis chapter 2, where Adam and Eve were both naked or uncovered, and they felt no shame. Their marriage was totally open to one another. It didn't just mean they didn't have clothes on. There was no covering in their marriage. There was no secrets. And that chapter 5, we deal with things like cell phones and allowing your spouse to have access to your cell phone, and social media that is kind of having a hard time on marriages when you've got couples that are, messaging people of the opposite sex if they shouldn't, and having friends of the opposite. We really touch on some tough stuff in that chapter. And that has been a really, really big chapter. We follow that up in chapter 6 with, chapter 5 is Let's Get Naked, Not That Way. Chapter 6 is Let's Get Naked, Yes, That Way. And so we do a chapter on intimacy, which I like, and which is always kind of fun because there's not a lot of folks that like to talk about that either.
No, but both of those are really important. And, as it's that issue of, this marriage is, God brought us together. This is the most important relationship we have on the face of this earth apart from Christ. And we need to put a hedge around that. We need to put those boundaries in place so that there is no inadvertent temptation. We're not sending weird signals. We want to just lift up the value of our spouse. So those are powerful and important.
There's a lot of couples that don't see how valuable their marriage is until they're right about to lose it. And then it's like, wow, I've missed this. And they're scrambling. You've got a spouse scrambling to save their marriage, and they've just neglected it for years and years. They didn't realize just how important it was. And we've just all got to do a better job at not neglecting that and realizing, hey, my marriage, when my time comes and somebody stands up at my funeral personally, if they are able to get up and go, he was a Christian man who adored his wife and was faithful to her and adored his kids, then that's the whole sermon right there. You need to say nothing else, because that's all that matters. He's a Christian man. He loved his wife and he loved his kids. And it's not going to matter what I did, where I went, how much money was in my bank account. And we chase after all the wrong things. And sometimes it's not till the end of life do we realize, I really should have been focusing more on my relationships.
That is powerful and absolutely true. Absolutely true. And I hate this, but we're running out of time. So if people want to find you and learn more about you, they want to find out about the books, where would you like them to go?
We have a webpage that would have everything there, everything from workshops to books to podcasts. It is treyandlea.com, and that's TreyandLea, Lee.com. And if you can't quite write that down and get that, I can promise you, if you'll Google Trey and Lea and the word marriage, you will find us. And you can follow us on social media. We do a lot of, you go, man, you never come to our area. You may look at our workshops and kind of where we're going to be and go, but I live over here and, I'll never get to go. Boy, we have social media. We put out marriage material there all the time, both on Instagram, Twitter, and on Facebook. And we just try to put good, healthy marriage material out there on a daily basis.
And I have to, I'll go along with that. You guys do. I've seen your stuff. Check out their site as well, because then you guys have stuff booked all through next year as well. So depending on when you're listening to this, I think this episode is going to drop somewhere around beginning of July of 2021. But, right now you guys have stuff all through next year as well.
That's right. We're in your direction. I think we're coming out that direction in August, end of August. I think we'll be back out in the direction of many of your podcast listeners. So check out where we're going to be in our information and all our locations are on our webpage, but we would love for you to come. If you don't quite know what to expect or have more questions, there's a place you can email us right there on our webpage.
Awesome. Yeah. So Middle Tennessee area, you guys are coming in August. That's a huge one for us. So definitely check them out. Well, Trey, thank you so much for being on the show today. This was encouraging to me. I learned a ton. I know our audience did too.
I'm honored, and I'm honored that you invited me. Thank you for letting me be a part of this.
Oh, it is my pleasure. So we will talk to you soon. And everybody, go check out the Stronger Marriage workshops.
Thank you. God bless.
Wow. Great conversation with Trey. A few things that jumped out at me from that conversation. The first is don't get lazy. That getting comfortable in marriage is a marriage killer. And so we need to be constantly working on our marriages. The second thing is that your marriage is the most important thing that you have after your relationship with Jesus Christ. And so it needs to have that type of focus, that type of attention, and we need to think of it in those terms. Last, we need to focus on what our spouse does well, not on what our spouse does wrong. So we need to pay attention to what they do well. So one last thing, if you're in the Middle Tennessee area, they are coming to Murfreesboro on August 20th and 21st. You can check their website. You'll be able to register and sign up at that point. We're excited. My wife and I are going, and it should be a great event. And if you're not in the Middle Tennessee area, definitely check out their website so you can see when they are coming to your part of the country. So great stuff. Everything's in the show notes. Check it out. If you found this episode helpful, please leave a review for us wherever you listen to podcasts. Doing so will help others to find us. Check out the show notes for resource information. We encourage you to do that for links and other references. We'd like to hear from you, so you can message us your questions or comments on Facebook, Instagram, at Entrusting the Faith. You can email us at info@entrustingthefaith.com. If you go to our website, which is www.entrustingthefaith.com, you can sign up to our email list and receive free resources as well as upcoming podcast episode information. So check it out. Lastly, just remember, legacies are built a day at a time. So start now.